I'm an addict and alcoholic. My problem is ACE. My sober date is 10/20/21. I have a sponsor who knows he's my sponsor. I have a home group. I have a service commitment. I am the Las Vegas CMA delegate. And I sponsor a few guys in the book. Um, First off, I wanted to say that I don't say any of that stuff to brag. I say those things because that's what I was taught to say, and it helps keep myself accountable. These are the things I have to do for the rest of my life if I want to stay sober. Um, so just to start, you know, I, I was born, in New York. I was raised by my great grandma and my great aunt. My mom didn't want anything to do with me, so she handed me over, in the hospital. My drinking, I would say it started, um, you know, when my mom was pregnant with me. She would drink 40s with me every night just so she can go to sleep. I guess I like to keep her up at night. So I was born with the taste of alcohol, loving the taste of alcohol. I was raised by my great grandma. She was very old school, old fashioned. She was born in 1927. She believed, you know, all kids' problems were either solved with whiskey or milk or ass whooping. So I got beat a lot. Um, and then whenever I was dealing with like, you know, baby issues, it was solved with whiskey or milk. Um, I really loved the taste of alcohol growing up. I remember when my great grandma, she wasn't an alcoholic, but she'd buy her beer every now and then, and she would share her beer with me. And it got to the point where I would, she'd have like one or two, and it got to the point where I would be asking, "Hey, do you want some more?" Because I knew she would share it with me. Um, Growing up, I did grow up in a very religious household. Um, my great grandma, my great aunt, they were Jehovah's Witnesses, and there was a lot of religious abuse, a lot of physical abuse as a kid growing up, and I was bullied a lot in school. Um, I don't know when I started drinking to fit in, um, but it got to the point where I was drinking to fit in, right? Because I felt like I couldn't fit in school because of the bullying. Um, but it got to the point where I would drink to fit in because I started having a bunch of friends around me, growing up. Um, I didn't get into drugs, in school because I played sports, and that's what kind of kept me from that. Also, to the fact that um, my parents, they didn't want me knowing anything about drugs. Like I wasn't even a part of Dare. They didn't want me. They kind of secluded me from it. They wanted me to know nothing about it. And the reason being was because I had a grandma that died before I was born, to a drug overdose. I also had a cousin that died before I was born, to drug overdose. So they thought that this is probably hereditary, so we're gonna keep him from it. Um, so I think I tried weed one time when I was 15. Didn't really like it too much, but I did love the drinking part. I love to drink. Like I said, I love the taste of alcohol. So anytime I had a chance to drink, I was doing it. My senior year in high school, I actually, did not graduate my first time around. I couldn't play sports my senior year, so it was kind of like, fuck school. I'm going to start ditching class, and I would ditch class with my friends, and we'd go to the corner store and go steal alcohol. And then I started popping triple C's. Then at that time, in my second senior or my senior year in school, I started popping triple C's. Um, and I'd be in class all messed up, can't type, and sitting there trying to type. Teacher's coming. Oh my gosh, the teacher's coming, and and I hope she doesn't see me, and I don't realize that I have a problem, right? I don't realize that I have a problem, with any of this. This is just me having fun. This is just me living life. I'm being a kid. This is what kids do. Um, After high school, I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. Um, I At this time, I'm living in Phoenix, Arizona. Um, I had to move from Phoenix because I got shot when I was 17. So I moved from Phoenix. I moved back to Mesa. That's where I was raised up at, and that's where I ended up graduating school. And the reason why I graduated school is because um, I got kicked out of my aunt's house. Um, I got in an argument with her, and I thought I was grown. I'm working and I'm grown, and I don't have to listen to her rules, and so she kicked me out, and so I ended up living in a group home. And I had a counselor tell me, "Hey, look, you have a chance to be the first person in your family to graduate, so you should go back to school." So I did, and I ended up graduating school. Um, After that, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, so I joined the army. And that was good. Um, I did 2 years out of the 4 years until I got injured in my second year. Doing airborne training, and you know, at the time, I didn't tell them. When I joined the military, I didn't tell them about a prior injury. Um, I had a prior knee injury, and when I got injured in my second year in the army, I re-aggravated that injury, and it came out that hey, look, you got a prior injury. We can't keep you in the army. So basically, I had joined on a lie. All of this, not being able to continue sports and school, to being medically discharged in the army, it made me kind of feel like a failure in life. And my drinking really, really took off. I started drinking heavily, drinking till I black out, drinking till I puke. I remember I asked my first kid's mom, out while I was super drunk, throwing up over the phone. Like it's like one of those situations, like really, who does something like that? And I guess I do. Um, so I'm in this relationship, um, and I'm literally drinking every single night. I have a bar in my room that I keep fully stocked. Um, and it got to the point where I'm drinking throughout the day. I decide, me and my girlfriend at the time, we decide to go tubing, and I pretty much drown in the river because I got so drunk that I passed out with my head under the water. Um, and that kind of scared me, right? That kind of scared me. So I said, all right, I'm not going to drink anymore. I stopped stocking my bar. And that lasted about a month. And it was kind of like, I think I just overreacted. I think I'm okay. And so I started back to drinking, and it gets really bad, right? I get in a lot of arguments with my girlfriend at the time. I'm putting holes in walls because my grandma taught me never to hit women. So I figured that, hey, the wall looks pretty flimsy. It's not going to fight back, so I'll just punch that. So I put a lot of holes in walls. Basically, we have a kid, and our relationship just ends, right? Because one thing I've never been taught was I've never been taught how to live life on life's terms. I don't know what it's like to be a father. I didn't have one of those growing up, and I don't know how to make relationships work. Um, and so that relationship ends, and this time, I'd say fuck everything. I start going to the clubs Monday through Sunday, getting blacked out drunk. Um, and that's when the club drugs start getting introduced to me, right? I start doing cocaine. I start doing ecstasy, Molly. You name it. Anything I start doing, I love, and I keep doing it because it makes me feel good. And at no point in time do I realize that I really have a problem, right? I don't see that. Anybody who tells me I have a problem, I just say, I don't have a problem, right? They tell me I need to go to AA because I'm drinking too much. I'm like, no, I'm not a quitter. AAs are for quitters, right? I just like to drink a lot. That's what I'm telling people, right? This is what I'm telling people. Um, you know, and I would say that I don't have a problem because my drinking had never interfered with my jobs, right? I've always been able to hold down good jobs, and you know, I look at other people and compare my life to theirs, and like, look, they don't have a job, and I got a job, so obviously I don't have a problem, and that's not the case. You know, it might have been the case then, but the more I continue to drink, the more the problems start piling up on me. Basically, I'm going from job to job, because I'm calling out, because I can't make it in. I'm getting fired. You know, my nightlife is catching up with my day life. Um, and yet and still, I think I'm just living life. That I don't have a problem. You know. Um, you know, it got pretty bad when I lost my second job. I was working for AT&T, as tech support, and you know, my nightlife really did catch up with my day life, and I got fired from that job, and I went into this deep dark depression. Right, I started hanging out with some people that were into drugs, heavy stuff, and they were into meth, and I got introduced to meth, you know, back in 2011, and I fall in love. I fall in love with it. Right, this is my first love. Nothing else compared to the way meth made me feel. And almost immediately, that's when, you know, my life started to really decline. I started losing everything that I worked for. Not losing it, but giving it away. Right? I get so bad smoking meth that I'm hawking all my stuff, giving it all away, just so I can get my next fix. And you know, I realized that, you know, maybe I need to stop doing meth. And so I make this decision to move to Georgia. I meet some girl online, and I'm like, I'm gonna move to Georgia. And I go. My kid's mom wanted me to see the kids, you know, before I left to Georgia. And so I go out to. She lived in Apache Junction, Arizona. I go out to Apache Junction to go see the kids before I left that Monday, and she ends up keeping me there, like pretty much taking me hostage. And I'm like thinking, I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is a good thing because I don't know anybody, right? I don't know anybody in Apache Junction. I'll be able to get off of meth. I'll continue to drink because I don't have a problem there, but I'll be able to get off of meth. And the problem is I'm bringing me, right? I don't realize that I'm the problem. Anywhere I go, it doesn't matter where I go, I'm the problem. And anywhere I go, I'm just bringing myself along. And so it lasted for a little while. Lasted about a year or two, and started working for this bar. And the bartender was actually the meth dealer in the neighborhood. And so I start buying meth from her. I'm smoking at work in the freezer. Um, you know, getting high, and I remember I had a meth pipe in my pants pocket, and I had to go to work. And my kid's mom let me use her vehicle that day, and I left her keys in my pants pocket. And I she calls me. She's like, "Hey, where's my keys?" And I'm like, "Oh, they're in my pants pocket." Well, I get a call right back and a picture sent of the meth pipe, and she's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, I'm trying to come up with a lie, saying, "Oh, I don't know what that is. I found it, right?" And the 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 strange part is like her dad knew exactly what it was because he was, you know, an ex meth head, right? He was someone who was able to just quit smoking meth altogether and never go back to it. So he knew exactly what it was, and she's like, "Look, you know what? You need to get rid of this, or you're never gonna see the kids again." And so I'm like, all right, you know, and I did get rid of it. And I told her, you know, I'd never smoke it again. I really meant it. I really meant that I would never smoke again because I want to be with my kids. And I got rid of it. And the next day I'm at work, and I'm picking up some more from the dealer. Um, you know, because at this point, right now, nothing means more to me than me getting high, right? My kids don't mean anything to me. My job doesn't mean anything to me. The only thing that matters the most is me getting high. And so I got high and I hid it from her. She had no clue that I was still continuing to get high. It's one thing I was always good at was trying to hide it from people. Um, and so that when I remember, I'm still drinking. I remember her and I got in an argument. She just kicked me out of the house. I have nowhere to go. I ended up one of the neighbors ends up taking me in. This old lady, she ends up taking me in. Her son was in jail, so she just liked having somebody at the house. So she took me in, and I stayed there for a few nights, and then I met my second hostage. She was a neighbor whose kids played with my kids sometimes, and it was on her birthday, and I was actually walking up to the corner store to go buy some alcohol because I was just gonna drink on my own by myself. And she's like, "Hey, come over." So I came over, and we ended up connecting and hooking up. And I was with her for 4 years and had to have a kid out of that relationship. But the whole entire time, I was drinking, and I tried to smoke meth with her. I was with her, but her previous relationship she was in was with somebody who actually smoked meth, so she knew the telltale signs of someone who smoked meth. And so because of that, I really thought I was in love, and so I quit. I quit for 4 years. Um, and but the one common denominator that her and I had was the drinking problem, right? And my drinking got worse. It got to a point where I started off drinking Jack Daniels and Coke, and switched over to vodka, and then next thing I know, uh, I'm I'm getting arrested because I decided to get in an argument with her and break everything, like shattered my TV, shattered a shot glass against the wall, and the cops got called, and I get placed on 18 months of probation. Um, that I stay sober the whole entire 18 months, but I was dry sober, right? Um, I was dry sober, and I did not want to go back to jail, so I stayed sober. Um, After the 18 months of me being on probation, when I found out that I was off probation from my PO, the first thing I looked at her and said, I was like, "Hey, look, tonight we getting messed up." I went straight to the liquor store and got drunk. And then, this time around, I said that I'm not going to drink vodka because that was the problem. That was the reason why I went to jail. I'm not going to drink vodka. I'm just going to drink Jack and Coke. But then I started getting violent with Jack and Coke, so I switched to beer. And it's still the same thing. I'm getting violent off of beer. So, obviously, I'm not seeing that I can't drink successfully. I'm not seeing this, right? And you know, I'm still, because I'm still able to work. I have this good job as a truck driver. I'm still able to work, and I don't see that I have a problem. And that's been my whole issue my entire life, is that I can't recognize that I have a problem. And so I um I continue to drink, and this time, I, I'm I start going back into my depression, and the reason being is because I lost my mom back in 2017. She died of lupus, and I don't talk to anybody about this. I now become the oldest member of my family on my mom's side, and so I figured that I need to be strong for everybody, and so I don't talk to anybody about how I feel, and I hid behind my work. Right, I'm working all the time, become a workaholic. I'm hardly ever home. When I get off, I go straight to the bar um, to go drink because I need to have a drink when I get off work, and I don't want to be at home because I need to relax first before I go home. And then I run into a buddy of mine who I grew up with, and he's like, "Hey, you want some meth?" And without even hesitation, I start doing it. And you know matter of 3 months, I lose everything, right? I have this truck, I have this car, I have this house, I have this job, my family. I lose it all. I don't lose it all. I give it all away. Um, because I get so hooked on it that I can't stop. I'm not even coming home, right? I'm not even coming home at night. I'm out at the bar, or I'm hanging out in my car because the one time I did come home, I have drugs in my pocket, and I'm sitting on my video game playing it. I get up to go use the bathroom, and I can't find my drugs. It's not in my pocket. I come back out, and she's like, "What is this?" And the only thing I can say is, "I don't know what that is. I found it, and I was gonna throw it away." Right? And it was just a lie, because that's what I'm good at. I'm good at lying, right? And so I'm like, shoot, I'm never bringing it in their house, because what if my son picked that up? So I just stopped coming home altogether. And when I do come home, I don't even go in the house. I'm in my car. And so she's asking me, why are you in your car so much? I'm like, well, I'm trying to install these new speakers I got, but I got to rewire the whole car, and so because I can only do it at night, that's why I'm not coming home at night. I'm not coming in the house, right? And this is just me trying to bullshit my way and try to make her think that I'm not using drugs. And the problem is like she knows I'm using drugs because she's been in a relationship with someone who's used meth. So she knows exactly that I'm using drugs, but I don't see that. I'm thinking I'm getting one over on her, right? And so I remember it was April 6th, and the reason why I remember this date so well is because April 6th, 2019 was the last time I've seen my little son, my youngest son. That was the last time I seen my youngest son. That was the day I went to jail. I came home from work after not coming home at all for 2 weeks straight, and I came home because I was going to go get a change of clothes. I actually had to pack some clothes for this weekend event that my job had out in Florence, Arizona, and she asked for the keys to the car. See, the car was actually a car I bought, but I put it in her name because at the time I didn't have a driver's license to drive it, so I put it in her name. Well, we never got the car put back in my name after I did get my driver's license. She wanted the keys to the car. And so I told her, you're not getting the keys. I told her I would crash the car into a wall before I let her have the keys. And her brother was on the phone, and he heard it, and he told her to call the cops, and she did. And I said, all right, we're doing this. And I went out to the car, and I hopped in. And as I'm backing the car out, I take out my passenger side mirror. So I'm like, shoot. When I did that, it made me stop and think and be like, look, if I get pulled over in this car, they're going to search this car, and they're going to find all the drugs in it, and I'm going to go to jail for a long time. So I parked the car back, and um, I hop out the car, and as I come back to it and throw the keys in there and lock the door, because it had one of those door codes. I go upstairs, and the cops end up showing up, and I end up getting taken to jail. And at this time, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't have a place. I don't have a roof over my head. I can go stay at a hotel. Yeah, I did that for a little bit, but eventually my money runs out. I could have gone back to work, but I'm so scared, and all I had to do was go to treatment. And it got down to that point was because my last day at work, I you know I started out smoking meth, only on the weekends, and then it got so bad that I'm smoking it throughout the week, and I'm smoking on shift, and I'm driving trucks at this time. And then it got so bad that I could not stay awake, and I ended up getting in an accident. I crashed the truck, um, you know, like into a cattle fence, um, in Arizona, and that was my last day working. And when I took the UA, that came out positive for meth. And my job, they're like, "Hey, look, all you got to do is go to treatment for 30 days, and you come back to work." I can't do that because I'm too scared. right? I'm scared of what's gonna happen. You know, maybe they're gonna call the cops on me and I'm gonna go to jail. So all this stuff is running through my mind. So I'm like, forget that. I don't even answer my boss's calls. And eventually they had to let me go. Um, so I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I ended up going to my homeboy's um house, and he lets me stay there, and he gives me some work on top of staying there. So I start getting into HVAC work, and that goes good. And then um, I have I'm so great at manipulating people, right? I have another buddy whose friend is a park manager for trailer park manager, and they had this trailer that all they needed someone to fix it up, and so I'm so good at manipulation. I manipulate him into thinking that, yeah, I got kicked out of the place I'm at. I tell him that my kid's mom cheated on me, and it's just poor me situation, and so they let me stay there, and so I'm there for a good month, right? And in that time that I'm there, and I'm supposed to be picking this, um, putting remodeling this trailer, I turn it into a trap house, right? I got drug dealers and drug addicts coming in and out of there, and eventually they kick me out. Um, and so I have this buddy of mine who he he working out of state, and he's like, hey, look, come work for me. The one thing you got to do is you can't be smoking meth. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect. I can stop because I don't have a problem, right? I have strong self will that I can just stop on my own. I don't, you know. And so I'm like, sure, I'll go do that. And so I did it. And I stopped for maybe a good month and a half. I did not smoke meth, right? And when we were in California, he went up to go to an event, and I was out there looking for somebody who had meth, right? Because I just couldn't take anymore. I had to smoke. I had to smoke, right? Um, and eventually, I make it to Oklahoma, and I eventually left my boss stranded in Oklahoma and went back to Arizona, just because I needed to get loaded and I couldn't find any out there. Um, and so I left him stranded, and I start selling, right? I get into selling meth, right? And uh, eventually I get into selling fentanyl. And at first I wasn't going to do it. I have a brother that was hooked on it, and so I wasn't going to do it. And so I always kept somebody with me who did do it, so that I could show people that, oh, I got good product, right? And so uh, um, I got in. Me and my brothers were very competitive, and you know anything they can do, I can do better, and I can handle my drugs better, and so my baby brother, he's like, you don't know what it's like to go with withdrawal, because I called him a pussy pretty much, right? Because I'm like, oh, you're a pussy, you over here withdrawing, boo hoo, and he, you don't know what it's like to go through this type of withdrawal, and I'm like, all right, bet. So I literally get into smoking fentanyl. One of the stupidest things or stupidest ways I can do that, right, is to do it based off of competition. And so I get into smoking it, and I was like, all right, I'm going to smoke just enough, and I'm just going to stop. Um, and so I did. I smoked just enough to put my body into withdrawal. Once I stopped. Um, and then that lasted for a day, right? I said I wasn't going to smoke anymore, and that lasted for a day. Um, that next day, it was January 6th, 2021. I had my first overdose off of fentanyl. And I remember these dates because this was literally my worst overdose. I got Narcan 4 times. They lost my heart rate still. They had to hit me with the defibrillator. And by this time, I had already gotten taken to the hospital, so these doctors are trying to save my life. And they hit me with the defibrillator. This is what I've been told. Um, The only thing I remember is waking up, right? When I wake up, um, the first thought that comes to my mind, the first thing I say out of my mouth is, "Who woke me up?" The second thought that came to my mind was, "Where can I get some more?" And one thing I did realize is that these doctors were actually getting ready to write down my time of death because they had given up on me. And it's, you know, this is where I finally started to believe that, there is something greater than me out there. Growing up in a religious family, I always believed in God. However, throughout the years, the deaths in my family, with me losing my great aunt, me losing my mom, um, all these deaths, right? They they just they made me not believe in God. Um, there was other incidents, and I forgot to mention this, right? But as a kid, I was molested, right, by a someone who I thought was a friend. I was molested as a kid, and I just started thinking, like, how can God let something like this happen? If there's a God, how can He let something like this happen? And so I stopped believing in God. And so that day, however, I started believing again. I knew there was something greater than myself, because I shouldn't be here, right? I shouldn't even be here telling you this story, but I'm here today. But in my twisted mind, I'm thinking, where can I get some more, right? Because at this point in time, like, I've gone through so much stuff that I'd rather take the easy way out. I'd rather just die, right? And what better way than die than just die from overdose, because I don't have to feel anything. Um, I I tried to take myself out 5 more times after that, and every single time there was somebody there to save my life. It's like almost like my higher power was putting people in place to make sure I'm okay, right? So eventually I stopped questioning God's existence and I start questioning, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Why are you keeping me alive? Why can't you just let me die, right? I'm seeing all the people I've known around me, they're dropping dead left and right, and here I am still alive, trying to die, right? And so I eventually get tired and fed up of trying to take myself out, that eventually I'm like, look, I need help. And at the time, when I look back at it, the only reason it was like kind of one of those 911 prayers, right? God save me, help me, right? Because at the time, I had burnt all my bridges with my dealers. Nobody wanted to sell to me, and so I'm going through withdrawals, and it's the worst withdrawals. Like, I don't wish that on anybody, to go through fentanyl withdrawals. And I'm going through the withdrawals, and I end up in this parking lot of a gas station on the ground. And so the police show up, the fire department shows up, and they take me to detox. And I'm there for about a couple, 3, 4 days, and then I get taken to a treatment program, and you know, I'm thinking, all right, cool, I think maybe I can stay sober. Um, but my problem is I think I know everything, right? I learned what the 12 steps are, and I'm like, oh, that's what the 12 steps are. Oh, that's easy. I can do this myself, right? I don't need this fellowship. I don't need AA. I don't need any of this, right? And the only thing I knew about AA was what I seen on TV. And what I saw on TV was just a bunch of people sitting in a circle talking about their feelings, drinking coffee, and smoking cigarettes. And I really didn't want no part of that. And so I left after 4 days. Left after 4 days, and um, I'm telling people, I'm like, yeah, I'm sober now, and I got this, and I know how to do this. I know how to stay sober, and it's my birthday, right? And I'm gonna go hang out with my buddy, and I'm gonna make that amends to him, right? I'm not gonna do any of the other steps. I'm just gonna go straight to 8 and 9 and make this amends to him, because I kind of did him dirty, and this is what I'm thinking the whole entire time. This is how this is gonna go play out, right? And so I do make this amends, and so he's like, all right, cool, come through. And so I go and hang out with him against everybody's advice. I got people telling me don't go do that because my buddy happens to be a drug dealer. And they're like, don't go do that. And I'm like, I got this. I got this. I know how to stay sober. And so I go over there, and the first thing he does is puts a tray out on the table, and I pick it up without hesitation, and I start smoking it. And in a matter of 2 weeks, right, I have all this stuff that I've accumulated. In a matter of 2 weeks, I don't have my vehicle. I lose out on the money I had. Um, I blew that. Um, and I'm wearing brand, new jewelry. I get arrested for the first time in my life for drug possession. I got caught with an ounce of meth and a loaded gun um, by Mesa PD. Um, and I got hit with felony drug possession, dangerous drug possession, felony, dangerous, being in possession of a dangerous weapon while in possession of a dangerous drug, felony, possession of drug paraphernalia, and being in the park after dark. Um, and I remember acting a fool, right? I remember acting a fool when they were taking me, putting me in cuffs. I remember when they're searching the vehicle and they're running the gun, and I knew it was going to come back clean because they said they stopped me because they said I fit the description of a suspect involved in the shooter, and it had me thinking though, like, what did I do, right? I was knotted out. What did I do? Right? Did I get in a shootout with somebody? Like, what the heck did I do? Because I can't remember. Right? I cannot remember what I did. And so, they see that I have a gun case under my seat. And instead of me having the gun in the gun case, I had the gun on my hip, and the meth was in the gun case under the seat. And so they asked, hey, can we search this? And I'm like, no, you're going to need a warrant with that. Well, they knew I had the key in my hand. So I took the key out, and, or hey, they put me in cuffs, and they took the key out of my pocket. After they had asked me to put it in my pocket, they took the key out of my pocket. They opened up the safe and they find the ounce of meth, and I went to jail. And I'm over here screaming at the top of my head, my lungs, like, "Hey, look, you're infringing my rights. You're supposed to have a warrant for that, because I think I know the law." And so, I get taken to jail, but because it's my first drug offense, I get OR'd. And what's was crazy is, I went to court a week later, um, and they didn't file the charges. And to this day, they still have not filed these charges, and that was back in 21. But it's something I do like kind of check every now and then because they do have up to 7 years. And so I make sure I kind of keep a tab on it just to see if they've filed those charges or not. But right now, that as of now, they have not. Um, So I get out of jail. Now I don't even have a place to go. I don't even have a friend's couch I can sleep on. I'm homeless. I don't even have my vehicle I can sleep in like I was before. So now I'm like literally in Tempe, Arizona, um, on the streets. I'm sleeping behind dumpsters. I'm sleeping on under the bridge on the freeway. I'm sleeping on the side of the freeway. I'm homeless. I am in the mix. And you know, it was out there, and it's kind of sad to say this, but I found my purpose out there. Once I got through my depression, once I started to actually do what I needed to do to make sure I got my next fix right, um, people started coming to me for help, right? And then the only reason why they would come to me was because I was considered out there. I was considered an enforcer. I literally walked around with this huge chain, with a lock attached to it, and anybody who got out of line, I'd bust their head with it. And I so I'm people are coming to me, and I start feeling this joy that I'm getting from helping these people, and I realize like this is what my purpose is to help others. You know, I have been asking what my purpose was. Why am I still alive? And my higher power actually finally showed me what my purpose was in helping others. I remember being out there and telling myself, that I, I have a train in my hand, my tray in my hand. I'm literally telling myself I hate this, but I don't know how to get off of this shit. And so I stay out there for about 4 months, and it got to the point where I literally was getting violent, right? And I hate getting violent. That's a side of me. Like, I'm not that person, and I'm getting violent. I'm beating, hitting people upside their head. I'm causing them to bleed. I'm leaving people in the middle of the street. Someone took my backpack, and I remember walking up on them, and I just hit him one time and left him right there in the middle of a busy intersection. Um, and I hated the person I was becoming, right? But I don't realize that I'm the problem. I don't realize that the reason why I'm going through all this is because I need to get myself fixed, right? I need to take a look at my life and get unburdened from everything that I'm holding in. I don't realize any of that. And so I'm just hurting other people because, like they said, hurt people hurt people. I'm out there hurting other people. And so I stay out there longer. I'm out there for a good 4 months in Tempe, and I get to this problem. I start having this problem where I can't breathe, right? It's like I'm so slowly suffocating. I can't breathe, and I don't know why. I don't know what's going on, but I just know that I'm suffocating. My lips are turning blue, and I'm in this tent getting ready to go to sleep, and I can't breathe. And so my homegirl that was in there with me, she's like, "You need to go to the hospital. You don't look so good." And I'm like, "No, I'm good. I just need to smoke some more, right? I just need to smoke some more because, like I said, I know everything, and think I know what's best for me. I just need to smoke some more." And she's like, "No, you don't look good." And so she ends up finding somebody with a vehicle, and they put me in the back seat, and they take me to the hospital. And I hear a lot of people say that you know they get to where they're at in life, because they've never had this burning bush experience, but I actually had this burning bush experience. And so I'm at the hospital, um and the nurse asked me, um do you drink? And I said yes. She said, do you do drugs? And I said yes. She said, what type of drugs? And I said, I smoke meth and fentanyl. How much? And I tell her. And it's got me so surprised because this is something I would never tell anybody. I would never have gotten honest with the nurse. And I never understood why I was getting honest with them now. So and like I said, I think I know everything. I said, look, all I need is a breathing treatment. Just give me a breathing treatment. And so they give me what I asked for. They give me the breathing treatment, and I'm laying, in that bed with the breathing treatment, and I keep nodding out, right? I keep going in and out of consciousness, and I remember coming to, and I hear the nurse say, "I think we need to Narcan him." And I'm like, "No, you don't. I'm awake. You don't need to Narcan me. I know everything that's going on." And they keep saying, "Why you keep nodding out? And why do you keep like you look like you need to get Narcan?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good, right?" So all I need is a breathing treatment. And they're like, all right, well, you need to stay awake. And then so I nod off again. And when I wake back up, I see the doctor look at the nurse and shake his head yes. And the next thing I know, she Narcans me. And when she does, it's like I was like the exorcist, right? I look right at her and I'm like, what did you do to me? Why did you do that? I told you I didn't need to be Narcan, right? And almost immediately I start going to the withdrawals. And now I just need to get out of this hospital because I have pills in my pocket. So I'm like, shoot, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. But I'm going through the draws. It's cold. I'm freezing. I'm shivering. I'm hooked up to all these leads. So I start ripping all these leads off of me. They still have the IV in my arm. I got to use the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom. And when I come out, I'm like, look, get this thing off my arm. Get it off my arm. I need to get out of here. And she's like, all right. Well, I feel she's taking her time. So I rip it out of my arm. I got blood dripping down my arm. And I leave the hospital. And I go into the middle of their parking lot. And I didn't give a damn who was around, but I needed to get well. And I kneeled down in the middle of the parking lot and I started smoking a tray. And almost immediately as I'm doing this, it's like I hear this voice. And it's not like I hear this voice. I hear this voice. What are you doing? This is not what I had planned for you. And I'm looking around and I'm like, who could have said that? And as I'm looking around, it's almost like I'm looking in a mirror of myself. And I see myself and I hate what I am, what I've become. I hate everything about me. I knew right from that point that I need help. I have to do something different because I'm dying and I don't want to die. And a cop comes up to me. He's like, hey, do you need help? And I'm hiding the tray a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And so he hops back in his vehicle. He goes back to the entrance. He goes inside the hospital and he doesn't come out. And when he does come out, he hops back in his truck and he just sits there. And I'm like, I thought he went to go get help. And nobody came out. Right? And when I think about that situation, when I think about that experience, I realize that, you can ask for help as much as you want, but no one's going to help you if you don't take the first step. And that's exactly what happened with me because I chose to sit there on the ground instead of walking my ass back in that hospital to get the help that I needed. No one was going to come out there for me. So instead of me going in there, I just get angry and I start building this resentment and like, man, forget that hospital. They ain't trying to help me. So I leave. And when I start leaving, the cop leaves. And apparently the lady that was there to take me to detox leaves. And so I end up I ended up I literally took me about 2 hours to walk a quarter of a mile because I kept blacking out. I kept going in and out of consciousness while I'm walking. And every time I would come to, I have to turn in the direction of the hospital to go pick up my phone because I've dropped my phone. And it happened 3 times. And when I look back at that, it's like the sign from my higher power saying, look, help is that way. Go get the help you need. But I can't go back to the hospital because I feel like they weren't trying to help me. So the next day, I've gotten down to this park, slowly made my way down to this park because now my breathing issue has come back. Make my way down to this park. There's one of my homeboys there, and he's looking to buy, and I got these pills in my pocket still, and I'm like, hey, look, I got some pills with me, man. I'll share them with you. And so I did, and later that night, and this is like in the middle. It's October 19th, really. Super cold in Arizona, right? It doesn't get that cold in October in Arizona, but I'm freezing. I'm freezing. I'm sleeping next to a fire and cannot stay warm. And I realize that, I don't think I have another 24 hours left to live. And so I got up from that fire by the train tracks, and I walk out to the main road, and I see this undercover cop go by, and it's about 10 o'clock at night. They roll around at the same time every night, sounding their alarm, their sirens to let everybody know they're out and about. Because this is Tempe, Arizona, and drugs are rampant, right? And they're trying to keep the drugs off the street, but there's so many fiends around that they have to literally sound their sirens around the whole entire city to let people know that they're out and about and they're ready to take people to jail. And so I see an undercover cop go by, and I try to wave him down. He doesn't see me, but he goes into his parking lot, and I follow him. And first thing I say, hey, can you take me to detox? And he's like, I can call somebody. You sit right here. And so I sat there. He left, but I still sat there and I waited. And a van came and picked me up. And so they take me to detox, and I'm there, and I don't have an ID. And the detox I was at, there, if you don't have any type of identification, they would kick you out after 23 hours. So I go through the 23-hour detox, and finally it's, hey, look, you're gonna have to leave soon. And I'm like, look, if I go back out there, I'm good as dead. I don't have another 24 left to live. And so they're like, all right. I'm like, I was here before back in June. Um, and they're like, I told them, I told them, I know that wherever you guys sent me to has to be in my file. So she's like, all right, come on to my office. So I go into the office, I sit down with her, and we go through my file, and we finally find the place that they had sent me to back in June. And I'm like, that's it, call them. And she's like, no, you call, right? So I'm like, all right, I can do that. So I make the call, and they came and got me that night. And for the first week of me being in treatment, it was rough. It was rough. I'm still detoxing. I had to, get placed on Suboxone, mat services, and it was rough. I'm freezing. I'm still going through the withdrawals, and I make it through the first week. They have in-house meetings. I start going to the in-house meetings. I get a sponsor, and you know, at first when I arrived there, I thought maybe, I just needed to get off the fentanyl and everything else I'm okay with. I don't have this many problems. And my sponsor, he showed me a better way. He showed me that I can live life sober again, that I can be happy, that I can build relationships and be the person I'm meant to be. And while I was there in treatment, I made a decision, you know, to or not. I made the decision to let my purpose be chosen for me, right? And my purpose was helping others, and I started finding out what peer support did. I found out what BHTs were, and I said, "That's it. That's what I want to do." And so, I think it was at 2 months sober, I met the owner of the treatment program I was at, and she got me confused. She thought I was one of her staff members, and she's like, I'm like, I'm not your staff. I'm a client here. And she's like, I don't understand how you have so much life in you. At 2 months sober, and I'm like, look, I don't know. I'm happy, right? I've been shown a better way, and I literally, by this time, I am literally on step 10. Um, you know, um, so I'm on this pink cloud, and so by her thinking that I was part of her staff, I told her, look, I actually would like to work for you. And so she said, see me in 4 months. Um, so I did everything I was asked of me, right? I hear a lot of people say they push back on their sponsors, and that wasn't me. Everything my sponsor told me to do, I did because my life depended on it, right? Um, Now I like to say that I did the steps uh, thoroughly the first time, but I didn't. There were some things that I tried to do without, right? I didn't. I still wasn't fully set on this higher power thing. I still wasn't set on the God thing, and so any of the steps I tried to do without God, any steps I had to do with God, I tried to do without. The problem with that is I had a really good sponsor, and he brought God into every meeting we had. He brought God into it, and so I tried to play all the card with the steps, and it just didn't work. Halfway through the steps, I started realizing that I can't do this without God, right? I told people I don't pray and I don't meditate, which I didn't. Uh, I never really said a 911 prayer. In jail, like I've been in jail multiple times. I've never said, "Hey God, if you get me out of this, I'll never do it again." Never said that. I've never meditated. I'm a tweaker. I can't meditate. My mind can't sit still. My sponsor told me this. He said, try it out for a year. If you don't like it, you can always be refunded your misery. And I'm like, okay, I'll try it. So I started trying it, right? And I started with the meditation. Um, and I just, took my time with it. I started out with a couple minutes, and next thing I know, I'm chairing meditation meetings. And I'm like, what? How did I get to this point? Right? How do I get to this point from someone who says I don't know how to meditate to now chairing a meditation meeting? Right? Meditation and prayers is an active part of my life today. You know, uh, this morning I woke up saying, "Thank you, God, for allowing me to make it another year." Um, today I woke up with 3 years of sobriety. 3 years of sobriety. You know, I never thought I'd make it to this point in my life. Never thought I'd make it to this point. Like I said, when I came into treatment, I thought I was just gonna get sober off the fentanyl and go back to everything else because that was fentanyl's what my problem was. But through treatment, they showed me who the problem was, and that's me. That's why my introduction is I'm an addict and alcoholic. My problem is Ace, because I'm the problem. It doesn't matter where I move to or what I try to do. I'm the problem at the end of the day. As long as I'm living by my self will, I will always continue to be the problem. And so when I go through the steps and I realize that I need to turn my life and my will over to care of God, right, as I understand Him and live in God's will, then I stop becoming the problem. I start becoming the solution, right? Today I get to help others. I work in treatment. And it brings me so much joy to sit down with somebody who's gone down the same path I went and see the light in their eye when they hear my story. And they realize that, hey, maybe I can do this too. I would, I don't know how all this works, but it works. I'm part of this men's accountability group, and they taught me how to be accountable for my actions. I've never been held accountable for my action. Any type of trouble I've gotten into was always a slap on the wrist. Always a slap on the wrist. Never have I been held accountable for my actions. But they taught me accountability. They taught me service work, giving back to my communities that I've helped destroy. Those are the things I get to do today. Those are the things that I love doing, right? My job does not feel like a job to me. It really doesn't. Because I'm out there in the trenches helping other people, doing the purpose that God had for me, living the purpose that God had for me. The whole entire time I told you about this story, never once did I say anything about my dad. You know why? Because I didn't know my dad growing up. I didn't have a father. In fact, the first time I got introduced to my dad was October 4th, 2021, 2 weeks before I got sober. And I remember this date because my sister's dad called me and said, "Hey, I have a number for you, and you'll never have to want for anything. He's got money." I'm in my addiction. I hear that, and I'm like, oh, heck yeah. I can use this to my advantage. So he gives me the number. I call him. In fact, I FaceTimed him. That same day, I lose my phone. I get another phone back because this is during the pandemic, so they're just giving out free phones left and right. I get another phone, and I can't find the number. 2 months into my recovery, I'm at a retreat. I got one of those Obama phones, so I'm getting really pissed off at it because it's really slow. and I'm tapping the screen. All of a sudden, it opens up the Duo app, and I see this New York area code number. And I had to think about it. I'm like, who did I FaceTime from New York? And then it hit me. It was my dad's number. I have a relationship with my dad. I got to fly out to New York for the very first time last January of 2023 and meet my dad for the very first time. Found out I have 7 sisters and 2 other brothers, and I'm the 4th oldest. Being reunited with family is one of the promises. And I don't get to do that if I'm not sober. I don't get to meet my dad. I don't get to meet my siblings. I don't get to fly to New York if I'm not sober. But I get to do that today. I get to have a relationship with my higher power, who I turned my back on for so many years, but never once did he turn his back on me. It took me a minute to see that, but he's never once turned his back on me. My life today is a whole lot better than it was yesterday, and it's hard. This past year, it's literally like I've been going through the terrible twos, but this past year has been rough. I've lost, a family member who was shot and killed. My nephew was. I lost another, brother of mine who was shot and killed, um, by his son. Um, it's been rough. It's really been rough this past year. The move to Vegas, my recovery out there wasn't as strong as it was when I was in Arizona. Um, and it almost took me out. But I kept people around me. I keep people around me who are sober minded, who want to see me do good, and will keep after me and keep pushing me until I'm doing better. Those are the type of people I have in my corner today. I didn't have that when I was out there in my addiction. I had people like, hey man, you just need another hit. Here, take this. Today I have something different. I have people who actually care about me. And I care about them. I I've been through so much, growing up. I've been through a lot, and everything that I've been through has prepared me to get to where I'm at today. Has prepared me to become the man I am today. And it took me a minute to realize that, right? And a lot of people, normies, would be like, "Why would you have to go through that? Something like that? You made that choice to go through what you went through. You could have just stopped whenever." They don't realize that God has plans for us, and sometimes we have to take the long way to get to where we need to be at. Right? Everything happens for a reason. And that took me a while to understand that. But once I did, once I seen what my purpose was, I was focused. I knew where I needed to get to. I heard someone say that, you know, when it comes to when it comes to our purpose, does it choose us or do we choose it, right? And I say it's both, because in the beginning our purpose it chooses us, right? And how we choose it back is by doing what our purpose is supposed to be, right? Mine's is helping others. So I choose it back by me going back to school. Right now I'm going back to school. I'm going to GCU. I'm going for my bachelor's of science in counseling with emphasis on addiction, chemical dependency, and substance abuse, right? And then once I complete that, I'm going to go for my master's in clinical mental health. that's me choosing my purpose back, right? Because it brings me joy. It makes me feel like I'm actually doing something in this world, and it gives me purpose, and that's all I wanted. I I don't care about fitting in anymore. The rooms that I'm in today, everybody's there because of the common denominator. We all want to get sober. We all want to see each other sober. So yeah, those are my people, but it doesn't matter to me that if I don't fit in society. I have my people. The only thing I can focus on is me at the time, right? If I'm doing the next right thing, you know. Today I get to put God first. Never did that. Always did that. Put him on the back burner. My sponsor, he told me if you do these three things, you'll stay sober. And that's clean house, trust God, and serve others. And today I get to do that. And that's all I got.